Welcome everyone to Awesome Truth, a wrestling book club. I'm your host, Steve Semino, and with me as always is my co-host, Walt Schwenk. Hey, Walters.
Hello, Steven. How's it going?
My friend, it is going very well. We are back on Awesome Truth, and today, Walt, we are talking about a food show hosted by a wrestler. That's where we are on the content ladder, right? We're so far we've gotten down. We're like, what are we doing next? How about this food show?
Yeah, we had Stephanie's Places, so
That's
from travelogue to travelogue with this show. So
What do we think that says about modern, entertainment? Because is it just because wrestling? Because wrestling is not necessarily popular than it's ever been at all. So, but it is, but everything else is sort of flattened. So, is it that like wrestlers stand out? People associated with wrestling stand out because no one is famous anymore. So, by proxy, if WWE is kind of famous, then everyone involved deserves their own television show.
well, first off, not everybody deserves their own television show. Let's just
But what
start
we're
with
getting with
that.
Stephanie McMahon and Braun Strowman, though, aren't we almost approaching everyone deserves their own show status?
Well, at this point, it's everybody deserves their own show that is no longer associated with the company. So, but
That's true.
we should probably intro what show we're talking about
Sure,
at this point.
sure. If you somehow don't know this, it's the hit show on USA. I didn't know it was a hit show, but I think some would classify it as such. We'll talk about that, of course. It's called Everything on the Menu with Braun Strowman. And as we're hinting at, it stars Braun Strowman, who has been released from his WWE wrestling contract for about 6 months at this point. But it sounds like as he was sort of on the way out, he filmed a wrestling food show where he does matches and then goes to a restaurant and eats the city's food. And so, even though he's no longer employed by the company in a wrestling capacity, they have this show, which is somewhat of a hit on USA. So, Braun Strowman lives in some capacity.
Just imagine diners, drive-ins, and dives, and sub out a third restaurant for just sitting at one restaurant longer, but then you see more food items. That's
Yeah.
effectively the whole conceit of the show.
Yeah. Everything on the menu part. Obviously, Walt and I have watched one episode, correct? That's it?
Yeah, I've seen one, and I kind of got the gist
Yeah.
of all eight.
They could technically tweak the format from episode to episode, city to city, but it seems like the conceit is you go to a city where Braun Strowman is wrestling. The cameras, there's a lot of little cut-ins and reminders. Braun Strowman wrestled. He fought Jacob Fatu. He did this. He did that. And then it says, and then he went to a restaurant and had a meal. Our guess is that it's maybe a local, well-known place for starters, where they say, here's a famous meal here. And then he goes to another restaurant and says, and now I will have everything on the menu, hence the title. And they bring out all 18 or 20, whatever things. And Braun Strowman's huge, and he eats all of it, and he sort of ranks it and says which one's his favorite. And that's it. That seems like the general gist of it, right?
Yeah, and just noting that I'm actually looking to see when it airs, and understandably, it airs
I
right
believe it is
after
airing as we speak,
SmackDown.
right? It's like new, right?
Yeah, and I think it airs on around a little either the segment or the time slot before or after SmackDown ends, which would make sense because you put this some any other night of the week on USA Network, and you're talking about wrestling, and the people who were trying to watch Bird Notice reruns or whatever the fuck you watch on USA is probably like, what is this shit, and why do I care? So it makes
It's
sense.
like it's like all those tweets which I think happens less these days. It might still happen somewhat. Is when they would preempt Big Bang Theory to show Dynamite or whatever, and there were those tweets like, "I just brought my garlic knots down to watch Big Bang Theory, and fucking wrestling is on. What the hell?" people getting very mad because wrestling has interfered with their normal TBS or TNT programming.
It feels so archaic though, talking about a WWE like shoulder program on a TV network. Like,
Now,
first
shoulder
off,
program is that industry lingo? Because you have been in the industry for quite a number of years, right?
I mean, yeah, maybe I just made it up. I don't know, but it's effectively like
Sounded real. It
it,
sounded good.
it's just like it's it's there was a term for it actually. Now I can't remember. These are terms I used to like be my vernacular
It's like
15 years
cross
ago.
promotion branding shit, right? Like just
Yeah,
furthering your relationship with the company, playing off, you've built an audience for one show and you assume they're going to stick around for something somewhat similar. That general idea, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean that you just nailed it right there. It's like you put the travelogue of the food show hosted by a wrestler comes right after the wrestling show, so that audience will hopefully stick around if you care.
Which is more thematically appropriate than putting like Chris Lee knows best after. So in that sense, it seems logical.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you what Chris Lee knows best is about, but I can't imagine there's a whole lot of co-viewing with like
Yeah,
wrestling audiences.
yeah, it was when you mentioned this show to me that it existed. I didn't know it existed. A and B, I was surprised to hear Braun Strowman was hosting it because while he is a large man and the concept of him eating big foods certainly makes sense. I don't. He was never the best promo, or talker on the show. So I was like, why would they give him a show like a show where all he does is talk for 22 minutes? Like that just doesn't seem that great. But I will say, just speaking objectively about what this show is and him as a host, he's pretty good. Like he's very charming and is very good with the fellow patrons and the people in the back of the restaurants. Like he does seem weirdly suited for this type of a thing.
Although it's really funny, there's a scene where he's in the restaurant, he's ordering everything, and he eavesdrops on this like table of like three eating. He's like, "Oh, I heard you should get like the turkey leg," and they're just like, "Okay, thanks."
Yeah, they do not give a shit at all. It felt so manufactured. It was like we gotta fill up some time here. Like Braun, don't forget to interact with the other patrons, but no one cared, so he has to like start a conversation that they don't want to have, and they could not want to get through it any faster.
Yeah, but I've always when I had a job in nonfiction TV as a producer, there was always something about like wrestlers that to me I would always be in I would be in talent meetings, development meetings. I always be like, we should really look at wrestlers, and not because I was a fan, although you know I was at the time. So it was convenient, but there is something about a talent larger than life, very comfortable in front of a camera, can memorize dialogue or like talking points or stuff quick on their feet.
Hmm.
The live TV experience allows you to like be comfortable in that kind of setting, and that a wrestler is an organic traveler. Like they even showed like a little lower third in this episode where Braun Strowman, it's like, yeah, he's been to 20 countries, he wrestled in 20 countries, and it's like I imagine he's seen most of the world just through his job. And so as a result, he kind of is a travel expert in some ways. I mean, am I going to listen to him pontificate about like marbled meats in the kitchen? And like, he's not a chef. So, I don't know how much that really buys him. But generally speaking, a wrestler for WWE is kind of a travel expert. And you have to be because you have to navigate across country, across the world. So.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point, and it does probably make him suited for this type of show to a certain extent. You probably, I'm sure you pitched this in your previous life many times. As you talk about it, I'm like, I sort of wish that Braun Strowman or whoever would do like a just straight up travel show, or like a travel show inspired by their wrestling career where food is a part of it, but it's also like, here's how I moved, as in the job I was at from one place to another, and here's what I saw, and here's like sort of like how I lived my life in this sort of nomady type of way. As opposed to this show, where, like you said, he is talking. Obviously, he has experience to draw on, and he's a big guy, and he obviously eats a lot of food. But sometimes he's trying to talk about like cooking and food, and you're like, I don't know if this is your forte. Like, not that he can't do it, but he has no background in it, and I don't really care what he thinks about it. Like, so, or when he's saying what his favorite meal is, like, I just don't find that part very appealing. I wish there was a way to sort of have that be a part of the show without having it be the crux of the show for a guy who's really just a big ofu who seems to like food a decent amount.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, his background as a strongman, where he's lifting insane amounts of weight and training for like almost gives him more credibility as someone who eats a lot of food than a wrestler. Like, I don't imagine John Cena goes to like back in his heyday when he was on the road like 500 days a year. Like, was going to restaurants and ordering everything. He's a body guy. Like
Yeah.
most of the body guy, like you think any of the cruiserweights are eating like 18,000 calories in one sitting, but like there's a chance that Braun Strowman could and does eat 10,000 calories in one sitting. So
Yeah.
in
If
that
your
aspect,
job is oaf, you have a different menu and
yeah,
diet than yeah, someone like Buddy Murphy or whoever.
yeah. Versus like guy Shitty Fieri, like he's a quote unquote chef and he's this. It's like, yeah, but he's still just like a regular ass guy eating like insane, like gorging himself in these like mom and pop shops across the country. It's like at some point, it's like, yeah, just because you like know how to cook doesn't mean you want to sit here and eat like Southern food until you like want to puke. Maybe he does. I don't know. He's guy Shitty Fury. Who
Yeah,
cares?
I mean, but Guy Fieri, obviously, his whole thing is his gimmick and his presentation and all that. And I guess
He's
that's
got to
that's
get. He's got to give it. That's for
he
sure.
absolutely he's got the look and the gimmick for sure, for better or worse. And Braun's got that too. And like it's clearly playing off the shorthand of like you've seen six other shows like this before. Here's another one. Our hook is we have a wrestler and he's big. And that's pretty much it, you know. And other than that, there's really not a lot of deviation or difference, which maybe that's enough, you know. Like it's, I will say, as a 22-minute thing I watched on YouTube, I wasn't offended or not or angry at the show at all. I was like, this is a very pleasant show. Like if I had cable and this came on in the backgrounds or just I was flipping through and it was there, I certainly consider putting it on and then like doing laundry or something, and just having this be background noise and general ambiance. Like it serves that purpose very well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the format and the genre of food travel show, like there's a clear like bar, right? I mean, like it's never gonna like unless it's like truly awful, it's never gonna be worse than like a C plus program because at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, you're seeing food. You're seeing like interesting places in the city. If you ever go to DC again, like you live in DC, you're like, oh, I might go to Oohs and Ahs. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of
I
like
thought that I'm like I want to get that meatloaf for myself. I've never been somehow, so it did make me
right.
hungry for food down the street.
So it's so like a show, no matter how bad it is, does check those boxes, and so it's hard to ever say that this show is like terrible. Like at worst, it's going to be okay to fine to pretty good. Like there's obviously better versions of it, but maybe not. Maybe like the best version of this is like a B minus, and it's with Guy Shitty Fury, and like you're to learn the same shit. You're seeing the same five like food porn. They used to call it like food porn shots. Like it's the same. Like I squint, but like it's also kind of funny because I look at this show. It's almost like a time capsule because this fucking kind of show hasn't changed in the last 20 years since I was making these stupid shows. And I, it's like there's a clip circulating with Adam Richman, former host of Man vs. Food, where he just like he went into this like riff, and this is filmed recently. He hasn't done that show in like 20 years, and has been canceled like 4 or 5 times since. So he's not advocating that he's cool or interesting, but he did this like whole dialogue or this. He was on this podcast. Something there's this clip circulating on my feed of him just being like, "Yeah, I'm here in insert city, checking out insert restaurant to see the how they do insert signature food dish. And when you go to insert restaurant and check out insert signature dish, you'll have to talk to insert chef to find out the ways how he incorporates insert." And it's like he just had this whole like template, like it's like an ad libs, and you
Yeah.
you do this like you see this Braun Strowman show, and it's the same like intros, the same talking points, the same like pacing, the same exact read. So it's like to me, it's like it felt like I was back in DC working at Travel Channel again. I'm like, Jesus. Not
Is
necessarily
Man
a
vs.
good way either.
It is you. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but is Man vs. Food the first version of this? Like, did that truly create this little genre in terms of like 2 decades ago or 2 decades since cable food, like you said, the ABCs fill in the blanks type thing? Like, was that really the first one?
No, I mean, I think
Okay,
diners,
was
drive-ins,
that
and
first?
dives. I think that
Uh,
predates Man vs. Food.
Okay, because I know
I
that, but Man
think.
vs. Food was, definitely, if not set a template, then certainly was pretty famous. And I know from working with Adam, like egos and personalities got involved and stuff. But
Yeah.
he did sort of, like you said, it's a mold that has, existed. Whether he created it or not, he certainly emphasized it, and it continues on to this day. So that is really wild that it's so plug and play and so monotonous in that
Yeah,
sense.
it really is. I mean, it's almost as if I put into ChatGPT, give me a script for a food travel show in DC with Braun Strowman as the host, and then give me and then you're going to these two restaurants trying these five dishes. Go. And
Yeah.
like you got that, like I exactly like I could
Be
like
sure to
close my
include
eyes.
some stupid wrestling puns and references too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I can't suplex Jacob Fatu, but I sure can suplex these fried turkey wings.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, by the way, make sure you inorganically insert references to this triple threat match that no one
To
remembers.
this irrelevant triple threat match, yeah, on a random episode of SmackDown, and reference it 5 times needlessly. So we can, probably just so we can show clips, from various, just to fill the gaps, to fill 30 seconds.
Yeah, and it's just so funny too because he's not with the company anymore. It's like
Yeah,
that's how little this show actually mattered to WWE. It's like, yeah, just put it out. Who cares? I don't whatever. Like he's the host. You can show the wrestling clips. Who gives a shit? Like no one even remembers that he's not even here anymore. Like who cares?
yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what the hook is. Like, is he just going to become food travel guy now because he's not wrestling guy anymore? So I guess we'll see what, like, if it truly is successful, and it's very hard to tell what successful means for networks these days because 500,000 people is like record setting. And that's, is that a lot in context? Sure. But is it enough to justify who knows? But I will be intrigued to see if this comes back, how they present it. And, he might just become a guy now. Like, I just go around and eat food. Who cares? I was a wrestler and now I'm a food man.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I don't know who else is doing a show like this anymore. So in the waning days of cable TV and programming time slots, which like is still so archaic to say even now.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, maybe the show fits perfectly well with USA's slate, and for season two, you don't have to even mention you can say he's a former wrestler
Yep.
because well he won't have the B-roll to show that he like wrestled in that town the night
Yeah.
before. But if the show's successful enough, then it doesn't really matter why he started doing this. It's just what matters is that he's doing this in your town next week. It's like,
Yep.
okay, oh,
Yeah.
cool,
Sure. And
great.
he eats the menu,
I want some fucking
So,
meatloaf. Yeah,
yeah.
cool, great, great meatloaf.
I don't think we've ever talked about Braun Strowman before, have we?
This is the most we've ever talked about Braun Strowman on or off the program.
Well, I was gonna say, what do you think? Like, let's just, obviously taking aside the fact that he's now a burgeoning TV host, what do you think about Braun Strowman's career? Like it was relatively short, given I think he's an older guy who broke in late. At least in terms of being Strowman. What are your 2 cents now that he's probably wrapped up his in ring career? Do you like Braun Strowman? Like, I think we all have like 3 Braun Strowman moments that are good and cool, mostly involving him being large. But yeah, like, do you think people look back and say like, "Oh man, what a guy," or like, is he just sort of another plug and play monster who came along and had a little success there?
The only things I can think of really is when he was booked well, he was like he was a pretty big draw, and he definitely fit like a spec. He was not like Great Khali, where I mean this guy at some point he started billing him doing like kind of impressive things for a guy that size that like would make Big Show like just like it would put Big Show to shame, you know. And Big Show was like a pretty like relatively agile big guy, like so well, not
What
relatively,
his
but
most
one
correct
time
me
he
if I'm
jumped off the
wrong.
top rope.
Do you think his most famous, obviously, so I think his most famous moments are with Big Show and with Roman, but like, would you agree that it's the Big Show wrestling match and it's the big superplex that broke the ring, right? Aren't those two of the big ones?
Yeah, I think so. But
And
but
that might have been the same match. I don't even remember. I'm not sure. It might have been two different things, but I remember like he had a legitimate like little wrestling match with Big Show that everyone thought was fun because they grappled and did some holds and mat stuff, and everyone was like, "Whoa, look at these guys wrestle."
I'm gonna take your word for that. I don't even remember that.
I
but
swear that
but
was a
yeah,
thing.
sure. I
Now
mean, like that's
I'm gonna look up Strowman Big
Look
Show
him up, yeah.
wrestling match.
Um, but I mean, like the guy clearly had athleticism for a big guy, and I think at his height, he showcased that in a cool way and was a prominent figure on the roster. I unfortunately his title run came during the Drew Mac COVID title run, or maybe he was like the year after when he beat Goldberg. And I think if that happened in front of live audiences and all that, I think maybe we remember him differently, but it didn't. And then he got cut and then tried to start something with EC3 and then like the choose your own adventure
Yeah, he
league or
sure did.
whatever.
I wasn't sure
And
whether we were
then
talking
came
about that,
back
but
and then he came back and then didn't really do much. And now he's a travel food host.
yeah,
I don't know.
they had a Raw match in 2017, and they did kip ups, they did chain wrestling, reversals, and stuff. And like it was clearly like and then they did the ring break. So yes, I was right. In 2017, they had a match. They did a ring break, and they did like literal grappling and wrestling too. So like just mostly as like a look at us, we can do it type thing. It wasn't necessarily good, but it was like, hey,
yeah.
you don't usually see two big monsters like this do real wrestling. So
Also noting without Strowman, we would never have had James Ellsworth.
was that
So
was that true?
well, because they they started positioning Strowman on Raw for like a long time, doing just classic jobber matches, and then Ellsworth was like the first one, and then she got pummeled, and then became like a fan favorite, and
Wow.
then to the point where at Survivor Series, like later that year or the next year, they paid that off by like having Ellsworth cost Strowman like the match or something.
Wow, you're right.
So,
I forgot James Ellsworth, who was almost on this show, but then bailed on us.
oh yeah, I have the receipts, the broken email chain.
If you're out there, James Ellsworth and Beefer, we're coming for both of you.
I will gladly talk to Braun Strowman too while we're
That's
at
true.
it.
But yeah, and obviously he was
So,
there. He had that whole Nicholas thing at Mania, which was stupid, but like it was a very
oh
Mania style
God,
moment. So yeah, he was I would say in terms of like the oafs they've had over the last couple of years, they did a pretty good job with him. I know his body was also very hit or miss too. Like his knees were shot. Like he would constantly
yeah.
miss time. He got laid off a couple times. I think he got paid pretty well. So a lot of times he would get laid off or released. It was because I think he had a big contract that wasn't commensurate with the amount of dates he could really give them. So
Mhm.
but the Roman thing in particular, like I remember there was a stretch there where he was, the correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was the babyface going after heel Roman. Is that right? And like I think one of the things is Roman was running away and like he would come out and like rip down stuff and be giant and like just have like in my memory there was a stretch there where he was like a genuinely well booked babyface and it seemed which is sort of weird because he's just so big, but I think he did have sort of that like like pleasant, not even pleasant I guess, but just like they made him into a friendly monster and I think it worked kind of well for a while there.
Yeah, now that you're saying all this, I'm starting to remember pieces.
Was there
It's
something
funny
with like
how
a
we're just
car, like he ripped a car door off or something, chasing Roman or something like that? I swear it was Roman.
no. He tipped over an ambulance, I think, at one point, or fire truck,
Might
or
be.
both.
And I mean,
Uh,
and this is all like, stuff with cars is some classic Vince stuff. So it's not like he was the first guy they ever had fuck around with a car. Like, sure, that's this when in doubt, that's one of the things in Vince's playbook to turn to, like
oh
have a
yeah.
guy do something to a car, break it, drive it, tip it over, like some version of that. But he was, he was pretty I would say he's had besides you said the aforementioned EC3 thing, which was really embarrassing, and I think I'm sure Braun would probably love for no one to think about that ever again, but or Adam Sure as is his real name. But yeah, I think he had a pretty good run there. Like I think for a guy who came into the Wyatt family as just like another big guy, and you're like they've already got so many big guys. Why do they need another big guy? I think his career turned out to be not obviously not longevity of Kane, but certainly I think in a similar vein. You're like, what is this guy gonna give us that we haven't seen before? And then fast forward 10 years later and you're like, he's still around. He's at the belt. Like he's, had a pretty damn good run, all things considered.
Right. Yeah. When he first debuted with the Wyatts, it was kind of like, what is this? What is this shit? But they did a good job of branching him out and branding him as like his own character and his own storylines and stuff. And that was cool. I thought they succeeded in that. He did become one of their big stars. And you forget that, or I forgot at least until now, that like him and Roman's big streak started with him and Bray Wyatt. And like that, there was a Wyatt and a Strowman feud happening when Roman came, won the belt, and then didn't lose again for like 4 years or whatever. So, you know, he's been circling around that kind of stratosphere for the better part of his career. And so overall, it's and also he's leaving the wrestling business. It looks like he has other prospects potentially, and he's not like dead, or his body's not completely shattered. So good for him.
Yep. Wow, you're reminding me of things now too. I totally forgot. He fought the Fiend basically, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And he beat Gold. So and he
It was all
beat
during COVID.
wow, and so he beat Goldberg at Mania at COVID Mania,
Yeah, I think so.
and then so Lesnar beat. I mean, so Lesnar lost to Drew Mac at COVID Mania, and Strowman beat Goldberg at COVID Mania, and
I
then he
think
fought the
that's what it was.
Fiend.
It has
Weird.
to be because Roman came back that summer,
Yeah,
and he didn't have the belt the following year.
yeah, you're right. That's exactly what it was.
So
Yeah, Roman he beat Strowman lost to Bray. They did some like cinematic stuff with apparently between them. That was probably pretty stupid. And then
yeah, I
yeah,
remember that. Well, I
wow.
remember I didn't actually sit through that shit, but
No, of course not.
I never watched that garbage. Um,
Yeah, and like good for him in forging this. You know, he's like I said, even the peaks we're talking about of his career, which were pleasant, and he won the belt and good for him. I still didn't think he had the personality to do this kind of thing, and like I think he is. He seems very gregarious and like the kind of if you saw a giant man come in, and also I think the southern accent helps a lot too. Like I think it just makes him seem a little folkier, like he's folksy. So when he comes in and he
yeah,
talks, like I think he just seems like a very pleasant guy. And so in that sense, I think it does. It's not as surprising when you see him start talking that he can interact with people. And he's still not a home run at it, but I think, for what we saw of him in the ring, I do think it's a nice outcome for him that is not what I would have predicted, but makes sense.
yeah. He gives off country boy vibes because he's from West Virginia. So like, I believe it,
Yeah.
and there's an accessibility there that I think is important because if he was too smart or too like sophisticated, like it's like what the fuck are you doing in a southern food joint, bro? It's like you believe that he would eat at a place like this to consume a lot of calories, and because it's kind of part of southern roots, it's like a food show really only works in those kinds of settings for the most part, because like nobody wants to see like a health food, b like plated uh tasting menu, like high-end tasting menu shit. You want to see fucking meatloaf, you want to see turkey legs, you want to see ribs, you want to see like fried chicken, like
Yep.
so. And he's the kind of guy out of anyone on the roster. Well, he's not on the roster anymore, but when he was on the roster,
Yeah.
well, I could say like, yeah, I could see that guy going in here and enjoying this kind of food. So I think it kind of helps play up like the show a little bit that he's hosting it versus like Dolph Ziggler couldn't. I wouldn't believe Dolph Ziggler would eat at these places because
No, he's never had a
his
mac and cheese in
abs,
his life. Yeah.
guy's abs. You're
Yeah.
not you're not going to eat his fucking like everything on the menu and have abs. It's like that's just not possible. Sorry.
And like you said too, like in this sort of splintered, weird, television climate, they're not going to pay for even if in some world where a John Cena would do this or a Batista, like there's no like they're going to do it for $1 million. Braun Strowman comes a lot cheaper,
Yeah.
and you pay a much less of a price, but you get quite a large man who has some name value, and like I think it's the perfect kind of person for this time and place in televised entertainment where it's like this guy gives us something. He's not no one's he's not we're not going to get it's not going to be the breakout hit of the century, but it probably is going to do respectable at worst because it has a wrestling allure and it has a guy you've heard of, and even if you haven't, he sure is large, so why not come see what he eats.
Right. In a format like this, you don't need someone like a John Cena because you're going to end up overpaying for that name, and
Yeah,
it's
you had
not going
Adam
to
Richmond. Why
yield.
would you want John Cena? Like, if Adam
Right.
Richmond can make it work, anybody can make it work. So
Right. So yeah, it's a bad investment to put anyone with any sort of name. So yeah, you're right. You get Braun Strowman at a discount. He checks all the boxes, and he can read a script just as well as anybody else in the fucking world.
Yeah.
So great.
Okay, well, the big question as we wrap up here: will you watch another Everything on the Menu with Braun Strowman?
Well, the reality of the situation is I don't have fucking cable anymore because I'm not a Neanderthal. So the only reason I was able to watch this episode is because I found it on YouTube, and for some reason USA gave away one episode. So like, if not this, I don't know how I would have watched even the DC episode of this. So no, I will not be watching this. Also, I could imagine the rest of the series in my head, and it would probably be shot for shot exactly how it would look in reality. So
You can close your eyes and just lay there and dream up an episode of Everything on the Menu, and it would be 95% accurate. So
I think so. Yeah. How about you? Do you feel the need to continue on this journey with Braun Strowman?
I because we saw the DC episode, and as you said, I live in DC and you lived in DC for many years. When you told me that was the episode that we could do, that obviously brightened my perspective considerably. It made me feel like, well, this is going to be fine, and then it was fine. And I think but it definitely feels more like a perfect storm scenario than a start of a beautiful friendship. The Braun, I'm glad you got a
All right.
gig. That doesn't require you to mess up your knees every night, and it seems like it's going well, and that's amazing. But no, I think now that I've seen the DC one, I will not be joining Braun on his culinary adventures going forward. But I
This
don't
is a
feel,
shame.
but we put this on our schedule, thinking we're gonna shit all over it. So to the extent that we really just instead talked about the concept of these shows and Braun Strowman as a host and all that, that's pretty good. Like I think it could have been. We were expecting a Stephanie's Places, and instead we got something that had some value to
Just to be fair, I don't think we really took too big of a shit on Stephanie's places either. So it's
it.
kind of like, yeah, I'm waiting to just for one of these wrestling like side quests to wrestler side quests to like just like tank. And so far they're 2 for 2 and not being bad. So
I don't
good for
know. The
them.
more I think about Stephanie's Places, the less
Okay.
I definitely feel not rage, but frustration at its existence and that we had to watch one. So if they fooled us for a few days of thinking it was decent, I do consider that a trick that she played on us because I do think it kind of sucks.
There was some a bit of groaning when I'm like, oh, there's another wrestling tangential wrestling format, TV format out there. You're like, oh, not another Stephanie's Places.
Yeah.
Yeah, close.
And think about Phil being on it too. Like I'm just so over Phil at this point. The fact that we had to watch more Phil themed things, I just really dislike.
That's true.
And
Well,
this
luckily I
that's
haven't seen
he
Phil
is
on this
he
one
is
yet.
such a candidate to do one of these shows in like 5 years too. I don't know what it's gonna be. Maybe comics or some bullshit. But I would not be surprised if there's a Phil Brooks TV show, not Heels, but a Phil Brooks reality
Hmm.
style TV show at some point. It just feels like what he's gonna. He can't. He obviously loves the fucking attention. He can't live without it. Like he needs to be on that screen. Like he certainly is not above selling out at this point in his life. So I think if there's a check waiting for him at the end of this wrestling rainbow, he's 100% gonna take it.
Well, I look forward to giving him my network notes when he inevitably does do that show. I'm happy to provide all of my feedback
Yeah.
in the form of a podcast with you.
I will also enjoy furrowing my brow at Phil and whatever kind of shit he's peddling to us. And hopefully we're still doing the show then too. If we're not, we'll come back for a special. If there's a
Yeah,
Phil Brooks, show of this sort and we nail the prediction, we got to come back and talk about it. So,
I think so.
well, until that day, thank you all for listening, everyone. You can find our archives at awesometruth.libsyn.com, where we talk about Stephanie's Places and any number of other stupid wrestling themed entertainment. You can also subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are delivered. We are there for episodes old and new. Well, good to talk about the Braun Strowman show with you. Now I think we're going to read some books soon, so that's very exciting. We're going to get back to the old tried and true methods.
It's a holiday season. It's time to buy some books for the wrestling fans in your life, and we're
Or
gonna
just for yourself.
or you buy it because you're traveling somewhere and you want to read some shit.
That's right. It's the best way to do
Yeah.
it. I hope you all do the same. Thank you all so much for listening. And remember, the truth will set you free.